Good morning, Britain. The Home Secretary warns that 780 million people could be eligible for asylum globally unless there's a radical reform of refugee rules. So, this is quite inflammatory language.
It's a huge claim.
No, of course to trying to get... And I remember at the time thinking, where are they? If you say that that many people are going to make their evidence for that is. No. And there's an element of a lack of number and in this tone. But, you know, we shouldn't be offering asylum to so many people. And then your country. Well, you're absolutely entitled. Huge political story. Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, it feels like she's going one step further now, in the few years after the Second World War. Basis of it. It's leading to almost 800 million people claiming asylum here in the UK. I mean,
that's not what she's saying. She's saying potentially
yes,
there could be...
Today's laws are simply not fit for purpose. There are 100 million people displaced around the world and likely billions more eager to come here if possible. It's not even 800 million, billions. For policy that's because you're not sure who financed it.
A higher and higher number. If he wants to put a stop to it, and
once they get here,
no. You've got to subsist on something like 40 quid.
Good morning, Britain. Just coming up to 3 minutes past 6. Look, I think a lot of people will think that the Home Secretary is effectively waging war on refugees.
180 million.
That she claims, and this is based on figures from the Centre for Policy Studies, which is a think tank, which has estimated that the way in which courts have interpreted the Refugee Convention has become so broad now that it effectively grants the right for at least 780, almost 800 million people globally could be able to claim asylum. And it compares with just 2 million people in Europe who were granted protection when that refugee convention was signed back in 1951. But my goodness, it's a scare figure.
It's a spearhead, isn't it? It's a spearhead in her attack of you really are.
Yeah. Well, you say it'll resonate with a lot of people. I think it'll appall a lot of people because there's no evidence that almost 800 million people are anywhere close. I remember interviewing the Home Secretary when she had written an article for the Daily Mail a number of months ago, when she'd used the figure 1 billion. Laura, thank you very much indeed. Still to come on Good Morning Britain. What do The Rock, Vin Diesel and Jason get a hair transplant? Why aren't we allowing men to embrace their baldness?
I thought we were. I actually thought that all that stigma disappeared 10 years ago. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
Well, I can imagine people saying, well, you have no clue, Richard Mady, because you have a fine head of hair
Well,
still.
I can't help that. I have, but...
Speak to two bald men later in the programme, but let us know what you think. Is there still a stigma around baldness in men?
Let's ask Joan Collins when she comes on. She'll have a view on that. Joan Collins joining us live a bit later on. Lots of questions about lots of stuff for her. Get in touch on Facebook, on Twitter, or I'm not suggesting Joan Collins is bald. I'm meaning male baldness. But anyway, we're going to get the news, the travel and the weather before all of that, wherever you're watching, and then we're back in 2 minutes. Born with a 1 in 3 million ultra-rare kidney disease, 8-year-old Aditi Shankar spent years on dialysis before finally having a successful transplant.
Yes, but it was only, Laura,